Hello and good evening. Happy Friday. Happy Friday for most of us, not everyone. Welcome to Legalbytes. I'm Alyte. I'm a lawyer, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. So as I said, it is Friday, and that's wonderful, but unfortunately, it's not a great one for everyone. One person in particular, that would be Boogie2988. It's really unfortunate. I feel bad for him. Honestly, I really do. But I wanted to talk about this case. He is a YouTuber. If you don't know, he's got over 4 million subscribers. He was arrested earlier this week for aggravated assault involving a firearm. Apparently, he was visited at his personal home, his private home, by a certain individual that had been apparently harassing him, allegedly harassing him, in his efforts to get him to leave, he brandished a firearm, shot it into the air. Apparently no one was physically harmed, but after he reported the incident to the police, they had an investigation, and now this week a warrant was put out for his arrest, turned himself in. He's been charged with aggravated assault. So I wanted to talk about this case because I've seen some of the comments on it, and I've been a little bit concerned because I've seen particularly some of the comments by some people suggesting that the outcome for Boogie could have been better for him personally if he had brandished his firearm in a different way and fired in a different direction, particularly at his harasser. And I personally very strongly disagree with that. And I wanted to kind of put a voice out there with a lawyer's perspective on this issue because of that, because I really would like to clarify that although this happened in Arkansas, I'm not an Arkansas lawyer. I'm licensed in California and DC. These are just general legal concepts that we're pretty much going to be talking about, but I'm also going to look at the Arkansas law through their statutes, basically, on aggravated assault, self-defense, all that kind of stuff. So was this case self-defense, and could it have been different otherwise if he had made some different decisions? That's what we'll go into. So let's talk about it. Let's go into what exactly happened. So, hey, Nate, and also, hey, Kurt. Hello, Uncivil Law. Good evening from Terra65, and hello, Nate. Good to see you guys here. So what happened here? If you are unfamiliar with any of the facts of the situation, you don't even know who Boogie2988 is, don't worry, I'll get you up to speed. So this is Boogie2988. He is a YouTuber. As I said, he's got over 4 million subscribers. Apparently he's been around since 2006. He makes all kinds of different videos doing comedy sketches and vlogs and video game news kind of stuff, kind of a variety. It seems like some of his, I'm not terribly familiar, but I've looked at a few of his videos, and it looks like some of his videos are much more lighthearted, and some of them are a bit more serious. He's talked about some personal subjects, like for example his weight and other issues that he's dealt with. So he seems like a nice guy from what I can see, but I don't know. I don't know exactly where this issue really started between him and this other gentleman, we'll say. But his real name is Stephen Williams. Apparently he lives in Arkansas. That's where this whole thing went down, was at his private residence. Supposedly he was being harassed for months on social media by a man named Frank Hassel. I don't know if that's his real name or if that's just a social media name. I don't really know what his shtick is, to be honest. He has a Twitter following, a substantial Twitter following. Yeah, I mean, it seems like most of his presence on there is trolling, essentially. But it seems like he's been targeting Boogie for quite a while. From what I can see, I don't know if there's another side to the story that I haven't dug quite far enough. So if there's more information out there, let me know in the comments, and I will. I'll be happy to update. But anyway, so after months of kind of going back and forth of I guess harassing him, really, I guess Hassel got access to Boogie's address somehow. And he showed up at Boogie's house. This was back in September 2020. So this past year in September. He showed up on his doorstep and he said that, I mean, he started communicating with Boogie through Boogie's doorbell app. So you can see, this is basically what it looked like here. So this is, you can see the Simply Safe here. This looks like it's a camera through Boogie's doorbell. And he knocks on his door, basically goads him to come out. And he says, you know, he's pretty much, like I said, he's goading him. He's suggesting that he's not quite man enough, essentially, to come and confront him. And apparently, this guy, Hassel, he had traveled across several state lines. I don't know exactly where he's from, but apparently not Arkansas. And Boogie, rather than refusing to open the door and staying inside and maybe calling the police, ultimately decided to open the door, brandish a firearm, and shoot into the air as a warning shot. After that point, Hassel went away and I guess apparently didn't come back. So, as I mentioned, Boogie was charged recently with aggravated assault. And the warrant went out for his arrest. He apparently turned himself in. Probably a good idea. That's generally a good idea, I guess. And you know, when you have a warrant that's actually out for your arrest. And then he's been in jail with a bond set at $3,000, which, given the circumstances, I think that probably is not a ton of money, generally speaking, for these kinds of things. At least that's my impression. So yeah, I don't know if he's still in jail, but I think it was on Wednesday that he turned himself in. He may have posted bail already and gone home. But so anyway, let's first talk about, in order to figure out if this was self-defense, or really justified in any way, we have to first look at whether it was aggravated assault. So like I said, it's actually not Hassel that has been charged with anything. It's Boogie, the man who owns this house, or lives at this house at least. So let's take a look here. Okay, here is the Arkansas Code, which talks about aggravated assault. So in Arkansas, it says a person commits aggravated assault if, under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he or she purposely, 1, engages in conduct that creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person, 2, displays a firearm in such a manner that creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person, or impedes or prevents the respiration of another person, essentially choking someone. So I didn't highlight that because that's not actually what he's been charged with. What he's been charged with is section 513204A2. So here, displaying a firearm in such a manner that creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person. So bringing out a firearm to threaten another person. We'll get into self-defense in a second. But first, you know, brandishing it on its own, maybe not. Maybe he really felt like he was trying to defend himself. However, shooting it is quite another matter, and shooting it into the air is even more of a different matter. So just handling a firearm, right? I mean, if I'm by no means an expert on firearms, I have gone to a shooting range multiple times. I have handled firearms before. I'm definitely not the world's expert on the subject, however. But what I do know is that basics of gun safety is you've got to keep it pointed downrange to wherever it is that you want it to go. Because if you start waving it around anywhere, I mean, things can go off and things can end up flying in unintended places. And when we're talking about firing into the air, that's probably one of the most dangerous ways that you can let out a firearm. At least that's my understanding anyway, because you have no control as to where it's going to go. What would have happened in this case if, thanks, uncivil law. Legalbytes versus uncivil law gun competition hype. Pew pew. Thank you. Okay, what was I saying here? I got distracted. Thanks a lot, Kurt. Anyway, when you have a firearm and you're firing it into the air, I mean, what could have happened, right? What if someone was walking down the street with their dog and they happened to get hit? That still has the bullet coming back down still has enough velocity to seriously harm someone or kill someone, and he could have been dealing with manslaughter in that situation. So I do agree. This is definitely a situation that warrants this section of the Arkansas Code. Turning then to whether or not it's self-defense, because that's obviously not the end of the analysis here, right? Because even if somebody's acting dangerously, they could have a justification for it, right? So we want to look into whether or not he was justified, and that is turning to self-defense. So here we have Arkansas Code on self-defense, use of deadly physical force in defense of a person. So he did not actually kill anyone. He did not. No one was actually physically harmed from this, thank goodness. However, what was I going to say? However, so we're still going to be looking to the statute here, right? So, okay. A person is justified in using deadly physical force in Arkansas upon another person if a person reasonably believes that the other person is committing or about to commit a felony involving physical force or violence, or using or about to use unlawful deadly physical force, or imminently endangering the person's life, or imminently about to victimize the person from the continuation of a pattern of domestic abuse. Okay, so that third one, not really relevant here because it's not domestic abuse. We don't have two people that are living with one another, right? So we can actually get rid of that highlighting. So looking at whether or not he reasonably believes that the other person is going to commit a felony or commit any sort of serious harm against him. We do know that there apparently was a pattern of harassment from this other person. Thank you, Ari Anthony. Help me out and hit the like button if you're watching. Yes, please do. If you're enjoying it, for sure. Okay, so in this case, there is a pattern from before this incident, right? They had communications for months and months leading up to this, where apparently Hassel was hassling him. And not just that. I mean, I haven't seen everything, but I have seen some footage of interactions that they've had where Hassel was essentially stating that Boogie was not man enough, or he wasn't a man and he was too submissive, and really just very much attacking his identity and his manhood and his personhood. And I can see how that would be very hurtful to another person and very difficult to take for a long period of time, and especially on such a public stage. So if that is coupled also with physical threats over time, and then you have that person who has been threatening you for a long time show up at your doorstep out of the blue, that can cause fear. That can definitely cause fear. However, you have to still look at the circumstances also in the scene itself, right? So that's just the context leading up to it. But looking back at, where is it? This video here. So looking back at this situation, this camera footage is arguably what Boogie had access to in the moment as well, right? Because this is Simply Safe. If it's like the Ring doorbell app, it should have an app on his phone that he's able to see video footage of it. And so he would be able to see exactly what is going on the other side of the door. That's part of the reason why they have these kinds of cameras on these sort of apps, these sort of doorbell apps. So you can see here that, Hassel doesn't have any kind of a weapon on him. He doesn't have any sort of blunt force object. He doesn't have a gun on him. He does have what looks like a GoPro on his head, which I mean, is concerning because doxing is definitely a thing. And it seems like this guy is out to put public information about Boogie out there. However, in terms of it being an immediate risk, it doesn't really seem like it because they're not even technically physically in the same space. Yes, Hassel is on his property. However, he's on the other side of a door and that door is ostensibly locked. And Boogie has options, right? He has options. He can not open the door and he can call the police. Until this guy is trying to break and enter into his home, the idea of him using some sort of self-defense is not really necessary. So to me, that on its own is already adding some skepticism here. On top of that, so when Boogie does decide to open the door, and I'm not going to show it because I don't want, I mean, this is already talking about sensitive topics, right? So who knows if it's going to be demonetized or whatever, or limited in monetization. But but from what I've seen, and you can see this footage, you know, elsewhere around the internet. It's not hard to find, but you can see from, I guess, the GoPro footage from Hassel's perspective when Boogie does open the door and he brandishes a firearm, and then apparently he fires into the air. He's in a residential area, obviously, because his home is in a residential area. I have, from what I've heard, his residential areas also has a school nearby, so that adds to this whole situation as well. It adds to not just the recklessness of the act, but also, you know, the reasonableness of his actions as well. But in terms of self-defense, really what it comes down to is whether or not he had a reasonable belief that he had, that the other person was about to commit some sort of serious harm to himself or to another person. And he had to have a sincere belief, and that belief had to be reasonable. So those are two different things. First, you have to show that he had a sincere belief, and then you had to show that it was reasonable. Sincerity, I mean, from the videos that I've seen Boogie talking about it, it seems like he had a sincere belief. I mean, I would give him that. I did see a little bit of one of the arguments that they had sort of on video on someone else's channel. I had heard that he had been on a live stream the night before, I think on Keemstar's channel, Keemstar, who has the channel Drama Alert. But I haven't seen that footage. I did see another sort of live stream where they were arguing, and it seemed to be like a pretty heated thing where they were sort of starting to puff up their chests and goad one another and sort of like seemed like they were going to get themselves into a confrontation. So that would potentially, I don't know. That could cut either way, honestly, about the sincerity of his belief as to whether or not he was in any actual harm, right? However, either way, though, we've got to look at the reasonability of it. How reasonable would his sincere belief be in this situation when he didn't have any weapons on him? I mean, what's he going to do? He could use his hands, right? I mean, he could use his physical strength, but he's got no objects on him to facilitate that even more so. But like I said, all he has to do is not open the door in this situation. So, and he knew who it was because they have this verbal confrontation through the Simply Safe app here. So they're having this verbal confrontation. He could just decide not to open the door. So personally, I don't think that he has a very good case for arguing that it was self-defense to use a firearm in this way. Now, I've also seen comments, and this is the part that kind of concerned me on the subject, is that I've seen comments that people have suggested that it would have been better if Boogie had just shot him. Just shot him in self-defense. I think I like I said at the beginning of the video, I vehemently disagree with that assessment because I mean, it could potentially support the sincere belief aspect of self-defense, right? That he was so sincere in his belief that he was willing to actually shoot him because he really thought that he was about to attack him. However, it doesn't do anything for the reasonability prong, right? The objective prong of how this looks to an objective third party as to whether or not the threat was actually there. So yeah, and then on top of that, he would have been responsible for actual physical harm, because like I said at the beginning, like, thank goodness there was no physical harm that resulted from this. No one was injured. No one was actually shot. Who knows where the bullet went, but ostensibly not into another human being. So if that had happened, he would have been responsible for that harm, obviously. And if it had killed anyone, he could have been looking at manslaughter, murder, depending on the situation here. Yeah. So and if it had, and on top of that, if he had shot Hassel, the argument of self-defense, it still would have been very difficult in that case. And he would have been, like I said, he would have been charged for manslaughter or murder if he had actually killed him in that circumstance. So I very much disagree with the suggestion that some people have said that that he would have been better off if he had shot him. Okay. So anyway, and one more. Let me see here. Where is? Okay. So the other parts, I think somebody asked here. Oh, is Boogie's state a castle state? Would that make any difference? So thank you, Crimson J, for the question. So here, there is a suggestion that he may have been required to retreat before using deadly force. However, and this is back in the self-defense part of the criminal code here, right? So Section 52607B talks about circumstances when they would have been required to retreat first. But they said that it says here that he would not have been required to retreat before using deadly physical force if a person is lawfully present at the location where deadly physical force is used. In this case, yeah, it's his own home. He's lawfully there. He's not trespassing or anything like that. 2, has a reasonable belief that the person against whom the deadly physical force is used is imminently threatening to cause death or serious physical injury to the other person. So again, reasonable belief, it's kind of the same sort of analysis as this part up above, right? That he has to have a sincere belief and it has to be reasonable. And then 3rd, he's not the initial aggressor and has not provoked the person against whom the deadly physical force is used. So in other words, he didn't start the fight. I think in this case, yeah, I think that fits here. Hassel's the one that showed up at his front door and started goading him and harassing him and all that kind of stuff. 4 is not committing a felony offense of possession of a firearm by certain persons with the firearm used to employ the deadly physical force unless the person is in or at the person's dwelling or in the curtilage surrounding the person's dwelling. So basically, so if he's not, he has to not be committing a felony offense with the use of his firearm, except for, if he's in his own home or on the curtilage. The curtilage meaning the space that's like right around your home, pretty much going up until the curb. So if you have, for example, a shed that's in your backyard, that's part of the curtilage. If you have the backyard, the front yard, that kind of area. So here, the location of the incident is within that space that is allowed under this section because it's right on his doorstep. So I think in this situation, if there was a little bit more, if Hassel had something on him that looked like it could be a deadly weapon, if the door had already been opened, and Boogie had been sitting on his front doorstep instead of, being inside his home, then that would have been a situation where this probably could have applied, and he may not have needed to retreat before using deadly force in self-defense. However, as I said, I really think that the fact that the door was closed at the beginning of this whole incident, I think that's a huge factor here, and I think the fact that that Hassel had nothing on him and wasn't actually breaking and entering into his home. I think that those are all important factors here, showing that really the argument that this could be self-defense is pretty weak, to be honest. So anyway, so uncivil law. I think you might be reading the wrong version of the law. Looks like Arkansas switched to standard ground effective March 3rd. I don't think it impacts the analysis though. Oh, okay. Well, we can take a look at that. March 3rd. Well, let me see here. Okay. Interesting that this is not. Oh no, this is current, actually. Take a look here. Current with changes from the 2021 legislative session effective on or before 4/27/2021. So yeah, this is current law. However, yeah. So anyway, and never mind. Okay, Arkansas Code 1690, 120 felony with a firearm. It provides for a 15-year enhancement. We can take a look at that if you want. Let me see here. 9120. If you hear snoring, I apologize. That's my dog, Indy. She is completely passed out on the chair next to me. I don't think you can see it. Wait, maybe if I move this comment and then switch this. You can kind of see her. Anyway, she's kind of a black mass. Okay, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Arkansas Code. Why is this not pulling anything up? Oh, wait, I got one wrong. Okay. Here we go, felony with a firearm. Okay, so we have here. All right, we'll do it like this. Okay, Arkansas Code Section 1690-120. Any person convicted of any offense that is classified by the laws of this state as a felony who employed any firearm of any character as a means committing or escaping from a felony in the discretion of the sentencing court may be subjected to an additional period of confinement in the division of, okay, so an enhancement of 15 years. So that is discretionary. So yeah, like I said, that's discretionary. Otherwise, aggravated assault is a Class D felony. I did not do that last bit of research to figure out exactly how much, to confirm exactly how much, but I think it's 6 years in prison for that. So when you have an enhancement that's discretionary, that is, I mean, obviously, like the judge can decide on his or her own as to whether or not they want to add the 15 years. In this situation, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily warranting, because let me look at this again. Any person convicted of any offense that is classified by the laws of the state as a felony who employed any firearm of any character as a means of committing or escaping from the felony. I mean, it seems like this seems to be suggesting that it would be that there would be some other felony outside of the use of the firearm that is being committed. So in other words, if you are breaking and entering into someone else's home and you're using a firearm on top of that, breaking and entering is its own violation. And then on top of that, because you're also using a firearm, in the commission of that act, or in order to escape from the act, they would add 15 years to that. But I think in this situation, because the firearm is part of that's the reason why it's an aggravated assault. I don't see why that would be added on top of the 6 years or whatever it is for a Class D felony in this situation. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting though. So anyway, so none of this, of course, is legal advice. But generally speaking, I mean, like I said, I feel really bad. I feel really bad for Boogie. And he seems like a nice guy. He seems like he genuinely was frustrated and intimidated and probably just didn't know how to handle this particular situation. If I could have been there with him in the moment, I would have recommended instead maybe calling the police and not opening the door, like I said, and probably getting a restraining order against this guy, because if he's willing to go so far as crossing multiple state lines after he's been harassing him and targeting him for months, actually showing up at his doorstep. I don't know if he previously had a restraining order against him, but it seems like this is a case of stalking. And obviously that is one of the most terrifying parts of being a personality on YouTube or on any other social media platform. The idea that people can come in and assume that you have no more private life because you are a face on the internet or a talking head on the internet or whatever kind of personality on the internet. So it's understandably terrifying, and I really do feel for him. But I think that this is a tough situation. He may be given some sort of leniency because he was the one that reported it to the police himself, and because he turned himself in. So I don't know. Personally, like I said, I feel for him, and hopefully that'll be that won't be too. Hopefully he'll be able to negotiate something in this situation. So anyway, that's all I've got for this subject. And if you guys enjoyed this, or I don't know if enjoyed it is the right word, but if you found this interesting or informative, I would love it if you'd hit the like button. And you know, if you want to see more stuff like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you can find out when the next video is uploaded. And so 25 years. Thank you. That's very kind of you. And moral of the story, as always, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That is 100% true. Always take a minute to think about what might result coming out of this circumstances. Obviously, it's harder. It's so much easier to say that after the fact, right? When we're Monday morning quarterbacking. Monday morning. All right. Happy Friday, right? It's the end of the week. Thank goodness. So yeah, but I mean, it's a lot easier to analyze the situation when I'm sitting in my office and everything's all calm. I have a sleeping dog next to me. You know, it's a lot easier to think through that situation than when you're actually in the moment. Or call a lawyer to help. Yes, preferably one that is licensed in your state and you know, able to give you personal advice. So anyway, that's all I've got. If, like I said, if you guys enjoyed this, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.